nie wegsehen, Kurt. Alles, was war, ist schön.
So firstly, Florian, thank you so much for speaking to us about your film,
thank you,
Never Look Away.
Thank you, Camila.
I watched it last night and I was so compelled and so touched.
Oh, thank you.
It's a very human film.
Good to hear that.
And I know one of your first stimuluses when writing the film was a work of art that you saw and that moved you. So I just wanted to ask you, what was your initial kind of inspiration when writing and directing this film?
Yeah, you're right. It did start with the work of art. There's a beautiful painting, which is famous in Germany, of a beautiful young woman holding a little child in her arms, and it was done by the famous German painter Gerhard Richter. And he later revealed that this was based on a photograph of his aunt, his mother's youngest sister, holding him as a little baby. So the baby was he, and the woman was his aunt. And that afterwards, shortly after this picture, she was murdered by the Nazis in their eugenics program because she was schizophrenic, and that didn't fit the Nazis' idea of what genes they wanted for the future master race. And what only came out when Richter was already in his 70s was that the woman that he ended up marrying after the war, that her father, so his father-in-law, had been a high-ranking SS doctor and the head of the very hospital where she was forced sterilized. And I just thought that would make a very compelling starting point for the battle between ideology and art, and between maybe intuition and science, and so you're right. It started with that painting.
Absolutely, and throughout the film, it's so layered. Like one of the paintings in the film, you have this massive political backdrop happening at the time, the theme of social identity, perhaps, but you also weaved it so seamlessly with these characters' lives and such a beautiful love story.
Well, thank you.
So I was just wondering what your process is like as a writer when you come across such a story that involves so many layers and kind of navigating that.
Oh, that's a really good question. It's actually rare for people to ask real craft and writing questions. So, as you rightly said, I always start with the human story. That has to be the backbone, because you can't make a film about a political idea. I never see that work. I mean, some people do that, but I always find those films kind of a little like, being forced to listen to a sermon or something like that, or, listening to someone on a soapbox in some garden. It's, I thought it was really interesting to have a victim living under the same roof as the perpetrator, as the criminal, and they don't know how they're connected, but they are. And the victim is an artist who has to use his intuition. And now the question is, will his intuition be strong enough to understand that the person who caused the trauma that maybe even propelled him to become an artist is this person who he sees every day? And I just thought it would be an interesting duel between these two characters, because that, and then from that, in a way, naturally comes the historical context, because just like in this family you have victims and perpetrators under one roof, that's how all of German society was after 1945. You had people who'd been victimized by the Nazis, and you had the Nazis who went unpunished, many of them, having to rebuild this country together. And I was always intrigued by how those relationships worked, and that was kind of the starting point.
Absolutely, and you spoke about the character Kurt's intuition, and that came across in such a magnificent scene towards the end of the film, where he's painting these portraits, and there's the use of lighting and nature and the windows. And obviously, I guess that attributes a bit to your collaboration with your cinematographer, Caleb Deschanel. So can you tell us a bit about that? Because the film is gorgeously aesthetic, like all of your films are.
Thank you. Well, when I had the idea for the film, and I'd carried it around for probably a decade or so, I knew that I needed this to be presented in extraordinary images. And there was only one cinematographer that I could think of who would be capable of that, and that was Caleb Deschanel. I'd seen the Black Stallion as a young child, I've recently seen what he's done with The Lion King,
Yeah.
which is going to come out this summer. And in between, he made The Natural with Robert Redford, and The Passion of the Christ, and The Right Stuff, and so many giant films that still stay so intimate that I knew he would be the right person. So I called him before I started writing and put him under pressure and said, I can only write this if you promise that you're going to shoot it once I have written it. So I made him promise. He was the perfect collaborator for this, because you can just trust his light. He can make anybody look good. I once had to send in a picture for a festival where I was on the jury, and I had all these star portrait photographs, but then I asked him, can you maybe do a picture of me, because I didn't like any of the photographs. And he took a picture, and on that picture I looked like a movie star, and I really don't look like a movie star. And because he did this in 2 minutes. He has that ability to create a light that brings out the best side in people, in places, and he's a deeply artistic person who is kind of like the artist in the in this film. He doesn't know how he does it. It's an intuitive process. It's a different type of super intelligence. And then on the other end of the filmmaking, we have Max Richter, the great English composer, who provided a score that is, to me, equally powerful. I just don't tire of listening to it.
Fantastic. And finally, my last question is, you must get asked this a lot, but I just thought I had to ask.
How tall am I? 6'10". No.
It ties in so well with the film, I think, and the characters, which is they're all looking for the truth, and they're all looking to aspire to their best selves and live their dreams. And I just wondered, in your career, if you could give any advice to people who are looking to do the same.
I was once given a really good piece of advice by someone who, in a way, was maybe in no position to give me advice, but it just rang so true when he said it. He said, when you're starting out in your career, when you're young, when you're in your 20s, maybe even in your 30s, it seems like, opportunities present themselves that seem pretty close to what you want to do, but they're not exactly what you want to do. And at the beginning, the difference is very small, but a few years down the line, the difference between doing almost what you want to do and exactly what you want to do becomes massive. So I really think that it's important to do, if you have an idea of what you want to do exactly that, and to be, unwilling to compromise the essence about it, because there's no point in making any kind of art or any kind of creative expression if you're not going to be completely free in that expression. So the greatest enemy of art is politeness, and politeness is often, accommodating other people, doing almost what you want to do, but just a little differently. In art, you have to do exactly what you want to do, and that's the one chance that you have of communicating from one person to the next.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your interest and your questions, and thank you for having watched the film so closely.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Camila. Okay, the film comes out Friday, the 5th of July, and cinema as an art form is in a difficult place right now, and when something is in a difficult place, that's when we decided to put everything together and just to say, let's make this exactly what we want it to be, and let's see if maybe cinema isn't a lot healthier than we think it is, and it might be.
Go watch it.
Sieh nicht weg.
Nie wegsehen.
Thank you for watching The Fan Carpet. If you like this video, be sure to click that thumbs up button at the bottom of your screen. And also be sure to subscribe to the Fan Carpet YouTube channels. They're absolutely free and so much fun too. Be sure to check out the official website, thefancarpet.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date with reviews, competitions, the latest news, and so much more.